Welcome back, Spurs fans, to the Scott Hepler Football Channel. Today we're doing our preview ponderings of the upcoming match against Crystal Palace on Saturday the 11th. And so we're going to look at a few different things. We're going to look at the positions, where both teams are at in the table. We're going to break down the different aspects of coming out of the international break. How's that affected the Spurs? How's that affected the Crystal Palace? And then we're also going to look at some key things within the matchup to look at and to be aware of with these two teams. So, this is our preview of the match. Something that I want you all to think about. I want you to ponder upon this. With the string of injuries that have occurred in the international break for the Spurs, does this change your thought on the previous transfer window that just closed, and where the Spurs only brought in 3 players to really help the team here and now, and even that's kind of arguable. So, this is something to think about. Let me know what you all think. You can put it down in the comments. If that's something that strikes a chord in you, or makes you get the wheels a turning a little bit, pound that like button, hit that little thumbs up, that like button. And but we're going to get into this preview ponderings here. So right now, Spurs are obviously sitting first place, as they were going in the national break. They have won all 3 of their matches, all of them 1-0. So no great shakes there. Definitely some good defensive performances in spots. I think Nuno has really done a good job in setting up the team to be successful and protecting the 2 center backs that have been issues in the past, and in my opinion continue to be issues in these first 3 matches. The only one that arguably had a decent match was maybe Sanchez in that first match against Man City. Even then, he still had a couple issues, but it was his most positive match of the 3, in my opinion. The other 2 matches, I think they both had significant issues that we were lucky a number of times to not concede goals and give away points. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, they're sitting in 14th place. They haven't got off to a great start this season, but they arguably had one of the better transfer windows, brought in some decent talent and things. And so between the 2 of us, we've each spent about 65,000 pounds currently in the previous transfer window. Now, that does not include any options to buy or obligations to buy on players such as Romero and Galini and things like that. That's actual dollars outlaid at that transfer window deadline that we've put out. And same thing with the Crystal Palace. They put out about 65 million pounds also. So both teams have brought in some pieces, but it could be argued that what Crystal Palace has brought in actually has strengthened their starting 11 more so than what we did. And so when we're looking at the Crystal Palace's last 3 matches in the Premier League, they lost their opening match against Chelsea. Then they played Brentford and drew, and then it was was it West Ham? I think it was West Ham that they drew against. So they've lost, draw. And in the first match against Chelsea, they went into more of a 4-4-2 formation, knowing that Chelsea has a lot of firepower and whatnot. Crystal Palace only kept about 40% of the possession. They were outshot by a ridiculous number, and they just really didn't do anything in that Crystal Palace match, and they got blown out. I mean, they got beat up pretty bad. And then in the next 2 matches, they ran a 4-3-3 formation, and they definitely looked more dangerous. The possession was about 50-50 in the next 2 matches, but they still in all three matches I've noticed, the defensive back line looked pretty disorganized. A lot of times they were, out of position. There was just a lot of chaos within that back line. And they do have some new people within that back line. And they're still trying to figure each other out, I believe. And so there's definitely some opportunity there for Spurs to take advantage of those moments when Crystal Palace is going to be disorganized, or if we create that havoc. That's one thing that I will say, that Chelsea, Brentford, and I'm just going to say West Ham because I can't remember exactly who it was. But those teams all created issues for Crystal Palace going forward, even if Crystal Palace tried to set back into a low blocker and whatnot. And another thing I did notice too with Crystal Palace, one thing they were doing, especially on their left back, is they were pulling them in significantly. Even though they were running a back four, that left back would be tucked in very close to the center backs. And so it left them left the opposition a lot of opportunity out on that wing. So it would be the opposition right wing, the Crystal Palace left, to get forward and to put things into the box. And so there's an opportunity there for us if we have the availability and the people to do it. So there's definitely some issues with Crystal Palace, with also their defensive back looks to be lacking in pace, especially when they came up against Brentford and Chelsea. The front attackers of those two teams were giving Crystal Palace fits in that back line significantly. And so I think they are actually lacking in some pace. And if we can actually have some people with some pace in our front line, we might be able to take advantage of some situations there. And then one of the highlights I would say for Crystal Palace after the Chelsea match and the next two matches was Gallagher, who is a midfielder that's on loan from Chelsea to Crystal Palace. And in his first match, he nearly scored, sent one right off the upright. And then in the second match, he got a brace. He scored 2 goals. So this kid's creating a lot of energy, he's the creative midfielder that we would like to have, but he's doing it for Crystal Palace. And he's actually in there scoring goals, and he's brought a lot of energy to that midfield for Crystal Palace when they're going forward and attacking, in my opinion. That's definitely a key feature that I think is going to be a problem for Spurs, is what are we going to do in midfield to slow this kid up and to make it difficult for not only the midfield for Crystal Palace, but that front line to attack our back line. And Nuno's done a great job so far in setting things up, making the midfield and the front forwards very narrow and compact, and forcing everything out to the flanks, so you know where it's going. There's nothing that they can work through the middle with. And being, while not flashy or any great shakes of creativity, we're actually doing a great job of limiting what the other team can do. Another thing that with Crystal Palace is they have Benteke as a center forward. He is a true center forward. And I've talked about this with Dyer and Sanchez. And Sanchez is not going to be available for this match because he's coming back from South America. He's going to be in quarantine. But Benteke in the past has given them fits. And so depending on who Nuno pairs with Dyer, because Dyer's going to be one of those center backs, I imagine, he's not going to change up the team any more than he has to, I think. So keeping Dyer in there, that's who he's been playing. And Romero, Sanchez are not even options, so that only leaves, aside from Dyer, Tanganga and Davies. And that's it. Really, that's it. Not many options. And Rodin. Tanganga, Davies, and Rodin. So the options are pretty slim. So how we handle Benteke is going to go a long ways into how this match goes for us, in my opinion. And it's not just Benteke. They have a strong aerial presence beyond him too. And then the other thing with Crystal Palace that we really need to be aware of and cognizant is their counterattack is very strong. They have many options in a counterattack, quick, strong players, and so they can cause us a lot of issues there. So that's really where we got to, I think Nuno's going to probably play the same way he's played the first 3 matches. In my opinion, we got a little stretched when we played after that the Man City match. We were really nice and compacting, didn't stretch out beyond the half line really at all. And then we tried to do a little more, especially once Kane came back, and it just didn't work for us very well. And so I think his best bet is to continue that formation that he's been doing, the 4-3-3, very tight and narrow through the middle, very compact. Don't extend the press. Don't press out to their 20, 30 yard line. Keep it from about midfield back, and then let us take our opportunities against them on a counter and different things like that. That's what I think needs to happen. Something interesting here. In our last 10 matches against Crystal Palace in the Premier League, Spurs have won 7 and drawn 3. So we have not lost against Crystal Palace in the Premier League in our last 10 matches against them. Now, when we look at what our record is against Crystal Palace at their home, which that's where this is being played. This is being played at Crystal Palace's home. We're 2 wins and 3 draws. And in those 5 matches, neither team scored more than 1 goal. So when we go to their home field, it's very difficult for us to get goals and put points up. And so I think that's something that's going to be very interesting on how we come out, what's our attack going to look like, not just in the counter, but when we actually have to build an attack, how's that going to progress? And is it just going to be the same old, stagnant, slow, methodical buildup that allows every team to fall back and just set up a block against us, and then we can't break it down because we don't have a creative midfielder. And it's not even just a creative midfielder. We don't have that creative of wings to actually take people on 1v1, 1v2 and break down the midfield and the back line once they get set. As far as injuries go, just for so everyone knows, I'm doing this on Wednesday afternoon. I'm going to be traveling over the next couple days. My grandfather's 100th birthday is tomorrow, which is the 9th. Yeah, the 9th. Tomorrow, Thursday, so it's the 9th. It's my grandfather's birthday. I'm going to be traveling, going to be out of town and celebrating his birthday over the weekend, from Thursday through the weekend. So going to make this video now. So there's some things that could happen or change with injuries and availability and such. But the people we know that absolutely aren't available are Lo Celso, Davison, Sanchez, and Romero, because they all were in South America. So they're absolutely out for this match because they have to quarantine. Over the international break, we've had some injury issues with Heung-min Son, Oliver Skip, and Bergwijn. Don't know the severity for each of those, but for my purposes and going forward, I'm going to assume they're not available, or if they are, they're only available on a substitution basis at this point. So when thinking about how this match will play out, there's 6 regular players that are not available for us to utilize, in my opinion. So it's going to make it very tricky how Nuno gets this thing set up, and it's just going to make it very difficult for us. I really think this is going to Kane should be starting. One, we don't have any other strikers, especially if Song's not available to go. I know he played pretty much the full match on his match today, Wednesday. Got a goal for England. He's starting to look more like Kane. You know, that first match back for us, he didn't look like himself. He looked pretty slow, was poor on the ball, just did not look himself. This international break probably actually gave him some good quality playing time, and maybe he's played himself back into fitness and into shape a little bit. So the risk is he's going to be a little tired, but we need him. So I expect him to start. We should have a number of other players available. Some of them had some international matches midweek here, but we need our team to show up. And this is going to give us an idea kind of where our squad depth is, really. Because in my opinion, Crystal Palace has played better each match, so they're not going to be an easy match for us just to roll over, I don't think. Now, like I said, their defense is a little suspect. So with those, looking at the injuries, that's a significant, or people that aren't available, that's a big thing. Another thing I'm thinking of here, we've got 7 matches coming up in 23 days here in September, now that this international break is over. So we're basically playing a match every 3rd day. So between Premier League, the Carabao Cup, and the Conference League starts back up. So we're going to be busy, and we're going to need all our players. And this is probably the worst thing that could have happened to us, was picking up injuries. Oh, and Sessegnon. I forgot Ryan Sessegnon. He's out. He's got an injury too. So we have just injuries everywhere at this point. Even if they're little nicks and stuff, I don't know that they're 100% able to go on Saturday. And so that's going to change up our options and what we can do and what we can get accomplished here. And it's also going to give opportunities to other players such as Heel and maybe, Ndombele, Winks. In the midfield, you're pretty much saying we're missing Oliver Skip, Lo Celso. Those 2 midfielders aren't even an option, so that still leaves you with Højbjerg, Dele Alli, Ndombele, Winks. That's it. So, just not a lot of options here to work with. But let me know what you all think. If I've said something or we've talked about something that you think is interesting, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up. I appreciate it. As far as the team result, honestly, with everything we have going on and not knowing whether we're going to have those players that picked up little nicks and dings and stuff here and there this week in the international play, even if we had our full complement, I think this would be a very tough match. Just history shows that this is a tough match for us, especially when we play at Crystal Palace. I think we're going to draw. I think we're going to do a 1-1 draw, in my opinion. Could we pull out a goal, another shutout? Could we? Yeah, possibly, but, we're not as strong in the air as, most people think. They're stronger than the air, in my opinion, and we tend to give up a lot of opportunities, either through corners or penalty kicks. And I don't know that we'll be able to hold up. Plus their counterattack, I think, is going to cause us a few issues unless we're packed in. If we extend out and try to press up the field, I think this one could be an issue. This could get away from us. We could potentially lose. If we stay compact like Nuno will, like he has, and I hope he does, I think we can pull a draw out of this. And, a draw is not the worst, not a terrible match result with the limited amount of players we may potentially have, and coming off international break, and a number of these players have played during the midweek. So 1-1 draw, get the point, get out, evaluate everyone's health. That's what I think. But let me know what you all think. Put it down in the comments. And come on, you Spurs.